So today I'm going to talk about stress in your brain and your nervous system and this thing called polyvagal theory, um, which I will explain a little bit more about. But basically, what I want to do is give you two models to understand your brain and your nervous system and how they relate to stress. The first one is some very, very basic brain mapping. Now, I am not a neuroscientist. I know that there are some people who are neuroscientists, maybe even cognitive neuroscience, who are in this college. Um, so I'm just telling you with the preface, like I'm not a neuroscientist, but um, what I want to give you is sort of a framework to understand the very basics of how you are going to experience your brain working. And then polyvagal theory is the other model, and that has to do with your vagus nerve and how the nerves from your brain, particularly your brain stem, connect to all the different parts of your body and help you experience the world. So first off, we're going to talk about brain mapping. Oops. So we've got two parts of our brain, essentially, in the very essentialist form. We have our thinking brain and our reactive brain. So the thinking brain is our prefrontal cortex, and that is going to consciously process and react to information. And it's really only 17% of your brain. Your reactive brain is your lower automatic brain, and that part of your brain reacts to information instinctively without thinking. There's no thinking or information processing involved. It's just like, oh, I see a thing, I react. And that's a much bigger part of your brain. So it's actually in play a lot more of the time. So basically, what happens is information from the world is going to come into your brain through the amygdala. You know, like we see it through our eyes, through touch, through all of our senses. Those are the stimuli in the world. Maybe somebody's giving a lecture like I am doing now. It's going to come into the amygdala, which is kind of like a train routing station. And in a calm state, the amygdala is able to filter relevant information to the prefrontal cortex. So it's going to get processed and you might remember it. So if somebody's teaching you a new concept, it could be that you're in this calm state and the amygdala is like, ooh, that's important. Let's send it to the prefrontal cortex. You process it, you remember it, you ace that midterm. When stress is going on and you've got all these emotions happening, maybe like sadness or frustration, boredom, fear, anxiety, those stimuli, all the stuff that's happening in the world is going to go right to the reactive brain, where it's either going to get ignored or fought against or avoided. So that looks like spacing out or sort of being combative. Like sometimes when you learn something new in class and you're like, well, that's not true, or that doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't that make any sense? And we have these kind of ways of interacting with it. So this is a little map. And this comes from the this author here, Judy Willis, is who wrote the article that a lot of this information I'm taking from. So your sensory intakes go to the amygdala. Without stress, we can go to our thinking brain. With stress, we're going to go to our reactive brain. We don't get a lot of learning done when we're in that reactive brain place. When we're stressed out, hard to learn. Now, there's also this thing called dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. And when we've got dopamine present, then it's a lot easier for us to go to the prefrontal cortex. Dopamine can be boosted by things that make us feel good, including sleep, spending time with friends, and reassurance or just general good feelings. So if a professor is, for example, starting class saying, you are welcome here. We're all on different parts of this journey. I am glad that you are here today. that's like a dopamine booster. You're like, oh man, somebody cares about me. And those neurotransmitters are working to like help that information go to the thinking brain to help you absorb that information. So the takeaways from this are that a lot of stress can inhibit learning. When you feel reactive, when you're feeling that combativeness or the sadness or like stuck in anxiety or fear, it's really difficult to learn well. And increasing dopamine can help you learn better. So that would be taking breaks, taking care of your body's needs, doing things that feel positive. All of those things can contribute to your learning over time. So in the moment, it's important, but also when you do it on a regular basis, like getting enough sleep, putting breaks in your day, making sure you eat, making sure you do things that feel nice, whether that's like watching cute animals on YouTube or hanging out with your friends, seeing your family, calling your mom, whatever it is for you. All of those things actually help you learn better. I think a lot of the time we get stuck in this loop of productivity, like I have to work harder, work harder, work harder. But our brain doesn't really work that way. If we're just like pushing against feeling that stress, then we're not actually going to get much done in the learning department because our brain needs to be in certain states to learn. I'm going to take one pause and stop my share because I saw that one person is missing the code. So I'm just going to send it. So I want everybody to be here. And do feel free, if you have friends who wanted to join, feel free to send them the passcode. Okay. Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yep. So the second model that I want to give you is this polyvagal theory thing. And I want to read this quote from Bessel van der Kolk. Bessel van der Kolk wrote a really important book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is about the relationship between trauma or like negative experiences and your body and how your body is storing emotions. It's fascinating. It's a long book. I never made it all the way through, but the introduction's really good. So he says, the polyvagal theory provided us with a more sophisticated understanding of the biology of safety and danger, one based on the subtle interplay between the visceral experiences of our own bodies and the voices and faces of the people around us. It explains why a kind face or a soothing tone of voice can dramatically alter the way we feel. It clarifies why knowing that we are seen and heard by the important people in our lives can make us feel calm and safe, and why being ignored or dismissed can precipitate rage reactions or mental collapse. It helped us understand why attuning with another person can shift us out of disorganized and fearful states. In short, Porges's theory, Stephen Porges was the person who developed this theory, makes us look beyond the effects of fight or flight and put social relationships front and center in our understanding of trauma. So essentially, this is like, we're talking about the thinking brain and the reactive brain, but looking at it in a social setting, the fact that social interactions that are positive give us a lot of important information in our brains that help us be calm, help us learn, help us be in sort of a more open state. So I'm going to give you two visuals for the polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory says that there are 3 states. that you can be in. Ventral vagal is that social engagement state when you're feeling kind, you're feeling like you want to talk to people, be out in the world, you're willing to learn, you're taking in information and absorbing it. The sympathetic state is that feeling of danger. You need to either run away or fight. And the dorsal vagal is the feeling of, I can't cope, I am out, I'm shutting down, I've collapsed in some way. And it's called the polyvagal theory because it is about the vagus nerve. So our ventral vagal part of the vagus nerve is going to be associated with our eyes, ears, nose, neck, which is why it appears near the head. The sympathetic, that's about our lungs and our heart mostly. Dorsal vagal is like anything below the diaphragm. So that's kind of the anatomy of it. But I actually like this particular image better because it shows us, it's kind of upside down. Here's our ventral vagal system, and I call that V squared. And that's the social engagement place. We are in the present, we're feeling curious and joyful, we're open to new concepts. And that's what we want our baseline to be. And our baseline is actually kind of like oscillating back and forth between the sympathetic place, where we might feel a little bit fearful or angry or a little bit excited. That's normal that we're kind of going to oscillate between those things. But when we experience a lot of sort of rage, panic, those feelings, and we can't manage them, we get into this like most aroused state, which is that freeze state, the dorsovagal state. It looks like depression. It looks like shutdown, hopelessness, feeling trapped, and especially this thing here, preparation for death. Like our bodies developed so that we could have all of these different states to protect us. So fight or flight is like there's a danger coming at us and I'm going to fight it or I'm going to run away. And if I can't do either of those things, then I'm going to play dead. I'm going to prepare to die. Opossums do that, right? Like they play dead in the presence of a danger. You can think of deer in the headlights. They get on the highway, they see headlights and they don't know what to do, so they just like freeze. This happens all the time in the animal kingdom. This is like a normal thing that our body does. And yet, when we're trying to learn, when we're trying to do research, when we're trying to like make academic progress, being in that freeze state is like not going to help us out. And I will send you these slides afterwards. There's a lot of words on here. I'm not going to go through all of them. But the idea that we're kind of in this baseline and then we might get stuck in a state up here of a lot of arousal. So here's one example that you might have experienced before, because I really think that all of us have experienced these things before. So you're in class and your professor, who is someone who's kind of important to your life, they hold on to your grades, whatever, they say something and you don't get it. You may have been pretty calm before, but like suddenly you're like a little anxious because you didn't get it. Then you're in that sympathetic nervous system. And so you raise your hand to ask a question. You want to do something about it. Two things could happen. Option one is that your professor could answer your question in a way you can understand or point you to other resources. And you're like, all right, cool, I can deal with this. And you come back to that calm state, that curious, open state. The other option is that the professor says, oh, well, you should really know the answer to this question if you're in this class. This should be easy for you to understand. And that makes you feel hopeless. And now you're in that freeze state, the blue, the dorsal vagal. So a lot of times when we're in that sympathetic place, the fight or flight, we have two different options. depending on what happens to us in the world, and those social interactions can really impact us. So I want to do 2 exercises. I'm going to stop the share so that you can see my video for this. So the first exercise is about thinking about our freeze state. I'm going to assume, I'm making an assumption here, that everyone in here has experienced that freeze state before, that feeling of like, I can't do anything, I just need to stay in bed. Like stuck, frozen, hopeless. And I'm going to also assume that if you've experienced that, you've been like, I have to get out of this. How do I get better? So what I'm going to ask you to do is a little weird, but bear with me. I want you to take your right hand and make a fist and clench it really tight. And then with your left hand, I want you to try and uncurl your fingers. And notice what your fist is doing if you're trying to uncurl your fingers. So for me, my fist is like clenching even tighter. It's like, no way. Like, I'm not gonna unclench for you if you're like trying to pry me open. Heck no. Okay, shake out your hand because that feels a little weird. Now I want you to try that again. Make a fist with your right hand, but this time with your left hand, I want you to put your hand in the direction of your right hand, like lay it over the top. And you can like give it some movement in the direction of your fingers, like almost like petting it in a way. And notice what that feels like in your hand. For me, my hand is starting to unclench a little bit, like it's starting to relax. I want you to think about that because when we get down on ourselves for feeling bad, when we're thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, I just have to work, it's going to make our fist clench tighter by trying to push ourselves through it. But if we actually lean into it, then we might actually relax a little bit and be able to get through it. One of my favorite examples is when I was taking CS classes as an undergrad. I remember getting really, really stuck on a proof once, and I was really mad about it. And I was like, I can't do it. I'm so dumb. This is awful. And I met my professor on the sidewalk and he was like, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, man, I'm really stuck on that proof. I hate it. And he said, if you stop thinking about it, I bet it'll come to you. And I was like, whatever. But eventually I had to stop thinking about it. I had to go to sleep. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh my God, there it is. Like, I think I thought about it in the shower or something. That's how our brains work. As if we can like let ourselves be in that place and not fight against it, it's going to help us to get through that a lot more. So this is exercise number 2 about how do we get out of that state? Because you're like, okay, great. Like I can't force myself out of it. Then what do I do? And this is something that I use a lot of the time. And it's to engage with your senses. So if you are feeling super, super stuck, super hopeless, everything's the worst, try thinking about what you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. I like to do it like this. I think about 5 things I can see. So from my desk, if I stop looking at the Zoom screen, I have a plant right here and a water bottle. I can see out the window. I have some dead flowers. Found a pen. It doesn't matter what the things are. They don't have to be like beautiful things. They're just like, what do you see? Literally just that. What do you see? And then 4 things that you can touch. and just reach out and touch them. Okay, there's a pen. And there's my phone. I can touch my phone, and I can touch my shirt, and I have 2 shirts on. So, okay, that's 4. Cool, done. And what are 3 things you can hear? Well, okay, you can probably hear my voice. I've got noise canceling headphones on, so I can't really hear anything else. But if you can think of 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell. If I can't think of 2 things, I smell my own body odor. I'm saying it's weird, but like this will get your brain out of that stuck place. And then what do you taste inside your mouth? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll put that on the slide for you to think about, to try and get yourself out of that place where you're getting stuck. So those are my 2 exercises. Bring the screen back for you. So the takeaways for polyvagal theory. First thing I want you to remember is that all of these states are your body's way of protecting you. None of them are inherently bad. Don't beat yourself up for feeling hopeless, for feeling scared, for feeling angry. This is normal. Those are all normal feelings. When you feel overwhelmed, when you feel frozen, you cannot get yourself out by doing more. I think especially academically, this is true. So rest is really important for learning and for research. And knowing which state you're in at any given moment can help you figure out what you need. If you can identify for yourself, like, oh, I'm in the green state, like I'm feeling really curious and open, that's cool. Or I'm in the blue state, I am super shut down right now. It's like maybe not the best time to try and do your homework or watch the video lecture, right? Just reflecting that can be enough. And then I also want to highlight this, that if things seem really bad, if you are getting stuck in that blue state a lot to the point where it's really negatively affecting your life, I want to encourage you to talk to someone. You can always talk to me. You can talk to Elizabeth, who's here today. I'm sure that she is open to that. Or Eileen or Erica. You can find a counselor at CCPH. You can request support for yourself or for someone else through the Dean of Students office. And I've given you the link there. And then also the crisis text line. I like referring people there because it's really easy. You know, nothing specific has to be happening to you and it's totally free. You just text this number and someone will text you back. So that is what I have to share.